Jared, welcome to the show. How has your week been?
My week's been fantastic. We just launched our new strategic approaches to UX research program, which is going to happen in June. And the first marketing stuff went out, and we immediately got people signing up. We're very excited about how this is. We think it's going to sell out. It's a great program that we've updated, so it's been wonderful.
That sounds amazing. All right, our conversation today is going to focus on, like making companies more like focused on user experience and UX research and like shifting the culture to make it more focused on the user. So, with that said, you've seen countless organizations attempt to embrace a UX focused culture. What do you think are the most significant roadblocks they face along the way?
Yeah, well, and most of them are themselves. That's usually what's blocking them, is they're getting in their own way. I think the biggest challenges that people have is that the the way we learn to work is we think we have to be the ones who innovate everything.
Hmm.
And the the truth is that your customers will tell you um, what what they need from you, but they won't come out and tell you uh, what you should build. You have to figure that out. But they will tell you what's wrong with their experience. And that will make a difference, because that is where you're going to have the biggest chance of innovating and becoming a market leader is by paying attention to who your users and customers are, what those users and customers need, what their current experiences are like, and what their future experiences could be like. Once you
Hmm.
get a solid understanding of that, and it's not just the research team that has that solid understanding, it's everybody in the organization has that solid understanding. uh,
Hmm.
Basically, every organization should become the world's foremost experts in who their customers and users are, what those customers and users need, what their current experiences are like, and what their future experiences could be like. If the entire organization is not the world's foremost experts, that means somebody else is, and they're
Hmm.
going to have the competitive edge.
So, with that said, what do you believe are the non-negotiable elements of a genuinely thriving UX culture?
You have to focus on the users and their experience. It's funny that we have to say that these days. But just the other day, I was meeting with someone from one of the largest insurance companies in the US. And this person was the head of research. And they were showing me some artifacts that they'd created that were about around claims, right? They're around, people who got into accidents and needed the insurance company to do what the insurance company said it would do. And he was showing me this multi-phase journey map of what the claims journey is like for customers. And it was just a single line along that axis. I said, well, how many claims do you have in a year? And he says, oh, we have hundreds of thousands of claims every year. I'm like, how is it a single line? I said, can you tell me who the customer is who had the worst experience with your company? It's like, no. Like, did you talk to customers? Oh, yeah, we talked to dozens of customers. I'm like, okay, can you tell me among the dozens of customers who had the worst experience? Well, if I think about it, I might be able to. Okay, what was their name? Oh, I don't know. Right? Where is the user in this journey map? There's no user in here. There's an average journey. The problem with an average journey is that if I have a really bad experience and you have a really good experience, when we put them together on the journey map, it just becomes an average experience. It's not great. It's not bad. It's been averaged out. It's nobody's journey. It's not a single experience of a single person. So this is the problem that we have. In UX, we have stopped talking about users. We have stopped talking about their experiences. Okay? The thing is, if I went to a friend of mine who bought that insurance and then filed a claim, I said, tell me about what happened when you filed that claim. They would give me all the details of the experience they had, where the company sucked, where it just astonished them and was amazingly good. And they'd put all the emotion into that and they would be crisp. I have a good friend who's currently dealing with some trauma, I mean, literal trauma that she's having because Airbnb canceled her account without telling her. And now she's losing money and this is a problem for her. And she gets physically upset when she tells the story of how she's being treated by Airbnb. And yet, if I go to Airbnb and I talk to them about their customer journey, her story isn't anywhere to be found. That's the problem.
When it comes down to winning over skeptics as well, like a lot of conversation happens around, pretty much, like UX researchers talking about people being skeptical about the value that they provide. We I think we talked about this a few weeks ago. I'd love to like shed some light here. So imagine this: you're faced like with a room of like skeptical stakeholders who just don't get the value of UX. How do you win them over and get them on board?
Well, you don't talk about UX, right? If I'm talking to a stakeholder, my first question is, what does success look like for you? And chances are they'll say something like, well, I need revenues to increase, or I need to reduce customer churn, or something like that. I'm like, okay. So now let's talk about all the ways that UX is going to achieve that for you, right? If we need to increase revenue, that means we're selling products either to existing customers who we want to give us more revenue, or new customers who have never given us revenue before. What does the experience need to be for those existing customers so that they think to themselves, oh my gosh, I have to pay the company more money for this thing because it's amazing? Or what is that experience going to be for those new customers where they come into this thinking, oh my gosh, I absolutely need this product. I'm going to start paying for it. Right? Think about a time when you discovered a product or a service. It could be a restaurant that you went to. It could be anything, right? Think about a time when you went and whatever happened, something convinced you that you absolutely need this right now, right? That's part of the experience. What was that experience that got you to do that? And that's what I want to talk to the stakeholder about. How do we make that experience happen for whatever their primary objective is right now, whatever they think of as success? At the end of this year, what do you want to be able to tell your boss you accomplished?
Mm. Well, let's talk about like training as well, education and training. How crucial is it to get everyone from top to bottom to adopt a user-centric mindset?
Well, it's not essential because obviously there are thousands of companies out there that don't do it. It's only essential if you want to be the ones that everybody looks to and says, I want my company to be like theirs, right? I mean, you don't have to do it. There are many organizations have proven that crappy user experience is still a sustainable business. Usually you have to be a monopoly or not give customers any choice to be able to get out of using your business. But if you're in any place where there are competitors, at some point, the only remaining competitive attribute, after you all offer your stuff at basically the same price, you all offer basically the same features, they all have basically the same reliability. At some point, if you want to be different, you have to have a better experience. Doesn't matter what the product is, right? How is it that Apple can sell a phone for 4 times as much as Samsung? Samsung sells 10 times as many phones as Apple. Apple makes 10 times as much money as Samsung on their phones. How do they do that? How is it that Disney can charge 4 times as much as Six Flags to spend a day at their park? I mean, it's the experience. A ride is a ride is a ride. You want to go on a roller coaster? There are millions of roller coasters you can go on. You don't have to go to Disney World. It's not the roller coasters people are going for.
It's the experience.
Right.
So, Jared, you're known for your ability to influence and inspire. What advice would you give to a UX professional looking to make real impact on their company's culture, even if they're not in a leadership role?
Well, when we work with our clients, what we teach them is they are in a leadership role. They may not be a manager. There's a difference. Managers make the team effective, right? A manager's job is to make sure that everybody knows what's expected of them, that they have all the materials and resources that they should have to do their best work, that they are recognized for that best work, that they understand why what they do is important to the mission of the organization, that they understand why what they're doing will be important to their career growth, that they feel like all their opinions count, that they have people that they feel around them that are also always doing their best work, so that they're motivated to be part of that. This is what a good manager does. And managers are incredibly important, but they may not be a leader, because a leader's job is to do something very different. Managers are appointed by the organization. So you can't become a manager unless human resources or some other manager makes you a manager. In the United States, there's actually a legal definition of a manager, and it's you're a different entity than if you're not a manager. You have different responsibilities. You are accountable in different ways. Companies have to have managers, starting with the executive team. So there's managers are this institutional thing. Leaders, on the other hand, are not created the same way. The company can't make you a leader. The way you become a leader is you get a follower. The moment you get a follower, you're a leader. And a follower is going to follow you because you have a compelling vision of what a different future looks like. A future that is so compelling that people are like, yes, that's the future I want, not the one that we're on the path to. And the follower then says, oh my gosh, I'm joining in. I want to be part of this.
When it comes on to resistance and like change, we've kind of like we've been we've all faced resistance to change at some point. What's your secret weapon for breaking through those barriers and getting people excited about UX?
One of the things that we lost when we moved away from actually talking about users and their experiences is we lost what is the primary outcome of UX work, which is to make people's lives better. We are so focused on shipping a product and trying to make the product as not terrible as we can get that we forgot that the whole reason we're shipping any products is that somehow getting that product should make the user or the customer's life better. And if it doesn't make the user or customer's life better, the product's not any good, right? If you're going to buy a new car, you're buying a new car because it's better than the one you have. It better make your life better. If it makes your life worse, it is not a good product. When we log into a service we use every week, let's say our banking system, and we're going in real quick because we need to do something fast. We need to transfer some money. We don't have a lot of time to do it, but we thought we could get it done in the 2 minutes before our next meeting. We log in and we're greeted with, hey, guess what? We've completely redesigned our experience. We hope you love it. And now you can't figure out what your balances are. You can't figure out how to transfer the money. Your 2 minutes is up and you've gotten back. That's not making my life better. It's different. It ain't better. And because I didn't do what I needed to do in those 2 minutes, it was actually worse. We work in user experience. To work in user experience, we have to talk about people's experiences. The way we deal with resistance is we talk about whose life are we making better and how.
Mm-hmm. There are many organizations as well who are like rapidly scaling and juggling competing priorities, especially in like this new age that we're kind of going into. Like scale is like crazy. What I've seen as well is that like sometimes UX is not at the forefront of what people are doing. How can companies and how can teams keep UX at the top of their agenda and not let it become an afterthought?
Keep talking about the people and the experiences, right? Until the experiences are perfect, you've got work to do. Let me give you an example. A friend of mine took her family to Disney World, and she was iffy about it. She was like, we're spending an awful lot of money on this. The kids are 6 and 8. Are they really going to appreciate this experience? And when she got there, and she and her spouse and the kids, they settled in, and they went to the park, and it was fine. It was good. It was fun. But where the value really happened was that first night, her 6-year-old wakes up screaming because he's in pain in his ear. He's got an ear infection. And this is about to tank the whole vacation. So she calls the front desk and she says, I think my kid has an ear infection. What do you recommend I do? And the front desk person says, okay, we got you. We're calling an ambulance and we will have the ambulance here in about 10 minutes. The ambulance is free. You don't worry about it. They work for us. It's all included. They're going to take you to the hospital. You have to pay for the hospital. We don't own the hospital. You have to take care of that. Your insurance should probably cover that. When you're done, call us. We'll get you an Uber. They'll come back. We'll pay for that. We'll make sure that the prescription medicine is here. We'll take care of the whole thing. We'll send some entertainment and some room service because your kid probably can't go out tomorrow. But in a couple of days, the medicine will kick in. And if everything goes well, we'll take care of that. At that moment, she was like completely sold on Disney, right? She'll never go anywhere else. And it wasn't because of how exciting the rides were for her kid. It was because they think of everything. They think of the whole experience. And they don't want a kid getting an ear infection, which every kid gets at some point. So it's going to happen in their park. They knew exactly what to do, how to handle it, and what it was going to take to not ruin the vacation. That's
Mm.
experience design.
Also, when it comes down to like having like thinking about every single part or every single step of a user journey, or thinking about like putting yourself in the user's shoes, it requires like heavy cross-functional collaboration, right? Like
Absolutely.
how can UX leaders build those bridges to ensure UX has a seat at the table throughout the entire like product development process, regardless of what is being developed?
There is no table. I don't know where this table myth came from, but there is no table. There is just making the product better. When people talk about a seat at the table, what they're really talking about is they want to be brought into those conversations where the important decisions are being made. The reason they're not being brought in is not because they don't have some chair that needs to happen, that they need to own, right? It's because no one thought to bring them in because nobody knew they could make a contribution. If they were clearly had information that would make the decisions that had to be made better, people would be bringing them in. So the answer is, if you want the quote mythical seat at the table, you have to earn it. You have to be the person who they would not start that meeting without, which means you have to have value that's going to get that. Now, let's talk about how did whoever it was at Disney Parks and Resorts decide we need to have the best experience when a kid gets sick, right? How did that decision happen, right? Because why would you ever think of that? Well, they got people who are in the hotel room or in the hotel lobbies at the desks who are getting phone calls at 3 a.m. I got a sick kid. So they know this is happening, but those people technically aren't researchers and they're not doing product research unless you think of them as researchers. And they are absolutely doing product research because they are collecting product data all the time, right? The front desk is a layer of UI to Disney, and that UI is collecting data. So someone had to take the initiative, and it probably wasn't, the CEO of Disney. It probably wasn't an executive who woke up one night and said, you know what we could do? We could add health services to our offerings in our hotels. It was likely someone who dealt with this saying, Disney keeps telling me, my bosses keep telling me my job is to deliver the best possible experiences. So I'm going to keep offering the best possible experiences. I'm going to say, look, there's an opportunity here for us to make our guests happier. And that person got other people excited. They have a vision now. They get people excited. That works its way up the chain to say, hey, there's a whole opportunity here we're not dealing with. We could do something. And people are like, that's amazing. Yes, that's exactly what our mission is. Let's keep working on this. Let's come up with something. Let's figure out how to do it. Another Disney story. There was a housekeeper on one of the cruise ships. Lovely person. A little selfishly, one day, she is just bored with her work. She knows that the Disney mantra is to make the best experiences. So she's cleaning up a room. And when she's done cleaning up the room, she takes the towels in the room and she makes little origami animal out of it. Not only that, she places this origami elephant that she's made out of a towel in the middle of the bed. And she takes the kids' toys that she picked up, because they were all over the cruise ship room, and she puts them around the elephant as if they were all playing together. And then she leaves. And turns out the guests in that room leave her a huge tip because they found this so entertaining. So she starts doing it in more rooms, gets more tips. She starts sharing with the other housekeepers. Hey, if you do this, you get tips. So she starts learning how to make more animals, and she starts teaching the other housekeepers how to make animals. The guests on the ship start talking about this to, other people, including customer service folks. So everybody gets wind that the housekeepers are now making origami animals. They leave a different animal every day, because you're on the ship for 5-6 days, right? Every day you get a different animal. So you get different, you collect them all up. People are like not using the towels because they don't want to ruin the animal. And so now this is coming up. The captain gets wind of it, says, this is amazing, this is fantastic, goes to a meeting of all the other cruise ship captains, says, I got a housekeeper. Like, could your housekeeper teach us to do that? Absolutely. Next thing you know, all the ships are doing this. And it's now working its way into the hotel rooms at the resorts. Where was the seat at the table there?
She made her own table. I
Origami
love that.
table.
Yeah. Speaking about data as well, we can like switch the topic, I guess, to measuring success and like continuous growth. I know you're a data-driven guy. What metrics or KPIs do you swear by to measure success for various initiatives to prove their worth to various stakeholders, I guess?
You measure success by the basic premise of what you're doing, right? So if the purpose of UX to improve people's lives, the way you measure success is, did you make people's lives better? And since we want to focus on the experiences of real users, if I'm making a claim for my auto insurance and I have the worst experience that you've ever heard of anybody making a claim. And it could just be bad luck, right? It could be I used the system and then halfway through it the server went down, or uh, um, the person who I had the accident with, whose fault it was, has no insurance, and now the company has to go through extra steps to deal with this, and there's all sorts of things that go wrong. Maybe I catch a claims agent just as they're getting really sick, and then my information gets lost because they're having a bad day. Whatever it is, all these things are happening, and some of them aren't my fault, but they just happen to me, and I end up having this horrible experience with the organization. Well, what could we change in claims so that the next time I have a better experience?
Hmm.
And what could we change so that nobody has the same horrible experience that I? And this
Hmm.
isn't much different than asking, what could we change to make sure that if a kid gets sick in a hotel room, that it doesn't ruin your vacation? And we're always looking for ways to improve the experience. What could we change so that when the kid is done with their day activity on the cruise ship, having the best fun in the pool and having a great meal, and now they're exhausted and about to break down in tears, you give the parent some relief because there's this surprise elephant in the middle of the bed playing with all your toys, right?
Hmm.
What could you do to make things better? And you measure success in terms of, did you make things better? That's the only success that matters. We can measure how many downloads of our app there are, but that's only useful if the app made people's lives better.
The story you told about the lady making the animals has me thinking about continuous learning as well, and like replicating that through an organization. It's very hard to do that at scale. Um, like how can organizations like foster this mindset? You know, I mean, like hiring the right people would be like a really good big like first step, but making sure that people are continuously learning and fostering that mindset within, especially the UX teams, and scaling it across the company. How can companies do that effectively?
It's all about feedback loops,
Hmm.
right? The reason the housekeeper kept making the origami animals was because she got feedback from the guests through tips and notes that this made their vacation just that little bit better. And the thing is, most people who work in a large organization are completely insulated from the users, from the customers. They have no idea how the decision they make affects the experience, but it almost always does. And so if you can get the feedback loop in place where you know how it affected, right? I have a choice. I'm a claims processor, and I've got 10 customers that I need to process claims on. And I have a choice. Do I send a note to each of those customers to let them know where they are in the process? Or do I just put my head down and keep working? And when I'm done, I'm done. And they'll get notification when they get notification, right? And customers are frustrated because they put in a claim and then they don't hear anything.
Mm.
And that silence makes them awkward. They don't know if they submitted the wrong thing, if they submitted it to the wrong place. Did they do it right? I mean, how many times have you sent something in and you're wondering, did I get it right? Did I get it wrong?
Mm. A
Right?
lot.
They get no feedback whatsoever. But what if we could give them, what if we could find out that that's making people anxious? Right? We don't realize that choosing to just get it all done, which seems like a reasonable choice, what if that's making people anxious? What if
Mm.
we could let people know, like, hey, I got your thing, but I haven't looked at it yet. Okay, I've looked at it and it looks good. It's going to take me a couple days because I have a couple people ahead of you, but I'm going to get to it. Okay, I'm almost at it. I have one more person to get to. Okay, I've got it and I'm processing it now. There's another step after me. It typically takes a day or two, and then you will have your result. Right?
Makes a world of difference.
It makes a huge difference. And then what if we could build systems that did all that for us? Because it knows whether I've looked at it or not. It knows whether I brought it up. It knows if I've started working on it. It knows how many people are ahead of me, right? We could build systems that do that. Take the burden off of the claims adjuster, the claim
Mm.
processor, right?
You can't you can't really drive enhancements without feedback, proper user feedback. You know, it's a gold mine for driving enhancements.
Exactly.
What are some of the most effective methods you've seen for gathering and acting on these insights?
Two things. First, someone in the organization is already gathering that insight, because when people are frustrated, they do things like call up and find out, hey, I'd like to know what the status of my claim is. That's being handled by someone somewhere. So, where's that information being compiled? How is it being collected? How do we let people know that anytime you encounter a frustrating customer, a frustrated customer, it is because we could do better. Even if the source of the frustration has nothing to do with us, like a kid gets an ear infection in the middle. We didn't cause that, but we can make that experience better. And so that's one piece, right? The other piece is somebody somewhere has to start doing what we've been calling deep hanging out, right? You just have to spend time with folks. If you just hung out with a customer, if the insurance company research team hung out with a customer who has a claim in process, maybe they check in with them every day. They say, look, I'm trying to figure out how to make claims better. So would it be okay if every few days I just reached out and was like, tell me what your experiences with this claim processing have been. Good, the bad, the ugly. What are we doing good? What are we doing poorly? Right? I just want to know. Or maybe we reach out after claims and we have conversations, real human conversation, not a survey. That's not human. There's no human involved in a survey, right? A real conversation. It's like, hey, I know you just had a claim with us. Where did we get it wrong? What did we do right? Tell me the whole thing. If you were to ever submit a claim with us again, what would you hope we would have figured out how to do better? You start having those conversations, and suddenly you get a wealth of information. At first, it's just all sorts of people's opinions. You don't know how to take it apart, but patterns start to emerge. People start to say, I feel like I submitted it to a black hole. One of those people is going to have the worst possible experience because they just had bad luck and the system just failed them at every point. And we can say, okay, here's where we failed them here, here's where we failed them there, here's where we failed them here. And that just made for a miserable experience. How are we going to prevent anybody from having all those failures again? How can we prevent every single one of those failures? One of the things is we are so natural to average everything. I don't care about the average experience with our claims department. I want to know why somebody had the worst experience with our claims department. I want to know who had the best ever experience with our claims department. And I want to know why those are different. How do we have that variation? This is how you deal with people. What makes a good day a good day? What makes a bad day a bad day? How did we contribute to both? Most people can't answer that question about their users. And if you can't answer that question about their users, about your users, you're not actually doing research.
That's a deep point. That's very deep. Um, like I want to talk about talent as well. How can leaders, UX leaders, ensure their teams are equipped with the skills and resources to drive forward this focus, this emotional like understanding, of users, because it's not something you find a lot, especially in the tech space. We're very focused on the qualitative and the quantitative aspect of it and not really understanding really people's experiences. How can that be, I would say, like put into the teams, I guess?
Well, some people are trained to do this. So I would start by hiring them. Uh, for the team that you have, or when you can't hire people who are trained to do this, you have to train them. None of this is rocket science, and I know this for a fact because NASA is one of our clients, and they have a very strict definition as to what is rocket science, and they have clearly told us that this is not rocket science. They suggested it might be brain surgery, but we work with the folks over at the National Institute of Health. They are insistent that it's not brain surgery. So we're currently thinking it's somewhere around pool cleaning. These are all learned skills. Nobody's born with them. Everybody learns them. So you have to build something into your process that trains people to do this. And you have to be ready for that. And it's not hard to learn how to do it, and you're going to make mistakes. But the important thing is you got to get outside the comfort zone. There is an entire incredible landscape to explore that lives between the edge of your comfort zone and the horizon of what's possible. So we got to get out there and explore that world.
Mm. Speaking about exploration as well, you've been exploring for decades. You've been a driving force in the forefront of UX for decades. What keeps you like passionate and motivated to keep on pushing the boundaries of UX and keep on improving our ecosystem?
People are still having bad experiences. In this day and age, we shouldn't be having bad experiences, right? Not for most of the products that we buy, right? Why is it that we get things and we get pissed off by them, right? We should know how to do this better. And I used to think it was because we just didn't know how to intentionally create a good experience, but now we do, because there are enough examples out there of organizations that do that on a regular basis. They're not perfect, but they get it right often enough that it tells us that this is possible to achieve intentionally. So then the question was, okay, maybe people just didn't have the basic skills to do it. But it turns out that the basic skills are not hard. So that's not the reason. And what I've come to the conclusion at this point is that it's because we as a field are not good at working strategically. We're great at tactical, right? We have a best practice for all the things. But the problem with best practices is that they are situation agnostic. The best practices for usability testing don't care what the product is, don't care what the users are trying to do, don't care about how the design team is structured or how the development team is structured. Don't care whether it's a big company or a small company. They're agnostic. They don't care about any of those things. But strategy is situation focused, right? A business finds out that I'm talking to a business the other day. They had 115,000 new people sign up for their service last year, but 106,000 of them didn't renew. So they basically had 9,000 people renew, and they can't make money and survive on 9,000 subscriptions continuing a second year. So they're investing all this money to capture new people and get the 115,000 to sign up. And now they need to understand they've tried everything they can to get renewals and they don't know what to do next. So something's happening that gets people excited about signing up. But for whatever reason, they're not staying. And they ask them questions and they get answers like, well, it's very expensive, or I didn't use it as much as I thought I would. Okay, that's data, but what do we do differently? We need to figure out why they thought it was going to be different than it actually was. And they need to figure out what would be so valuable that someone would think, this is so worth it. I am getting a bargain. I am definitely signing up for it. And to do that, they're going to have to spend some serious time with the people who are doing the work, who are buying this thing, who are thinking that this is going to be helpful to them, and then a year later deciding that it didn't live up to its promise. And they need to understand all that. And that's the real key, right? The teams never had to deal with this before. They don't have any of the skills to deal with it yet, but we're working together. And the skills aren't hard. And the mission is clear, right? If they can get, if they can get another 9,000 to stay, they double their subscription revenue. If they can get 90,000 to stay, that's a 10 times improvement. So they don't even have to change anything on the front end where they're getting new customers to join. They have to do a better job of meeting the promise so that people stay for another year. Now, maybe they will have to change something on the front end because they're promising more than they can deliver. We'll see. But that's the work. And notice in there, I didn't talk at all about screens or apps or usability tests or anything that we as UX people think of as the job.
Really understanding the core. Like I have to understand. I get this as well. Pretty much like I want to understand the way how you envision the future of UX culture changing in companies. How do you see us making taking this understanding or making sure that we're really understanding people for who they really are, what they want to accomplish, and making that happen at scale as well, because like you can't really just do it through numbers. You have to like really, you said, put yourself in the user's shoes, really like live the life that the user lives. What's your vision for the future of UX and putting that into or culture as companies?
I'm not a futurist, so I don't think of those things in terms of a future vision. I am what I know is that there are companies out there, and we've talked about some of them, like Disney and Apple, but there are others, many others, who are doing a great job, much better than the rest of the organizations that they compete against. And not just companies, but there's government organizations who are doing some amazing things. There's universities who are doing things really well. There are nonprofits who are doing things amazing. So I'm less about trying to predict the future and more about asking, why aren't other organizations like those? What's keeping them from being like those? And that to me is more interesting. So I think the future is already here. It's just not well distributed.
I love that. I love that. This is my last question
I
here. I
can't
ask.
take credit for it. That's a William Gibson line, but
Yes, yes. It's my last question here. I ask everyone who comes on the show this question, and for sure, I have to ask you as well. Um, like, what's one weakness that you've turned into your strength?
it's a weakness that I turned into my strength. Oh gosh. This is like one of those questions in a job interview that has no good answer. It's like, what?
There are no right or wrong answers.
Yeah, yeah. Um, what's a weakness that I've turned into a strength? I'm not a good designer. I mean, I didn't go to design school because there weren't design schools when I was learning how to do things. I've been in this business for more than 40 years, so Um, those things didn't exist back then. And I one of the things that most people don't know about me is that I didn't go to college. I didn't even graduate high school, and it was because I don't have the patience to do things that are expected of me, but for which I do not see value. So I didn't graduate high school because I didn't write a paper for an English class, because I didn't read the book about the paper, because it wasn't until after the class that I learned I have a reading disability. So I couldn't do the paper. But instead, at the same time, I taught myself how to program computers. And I was also doing a whole lot of theater work, which gave me presentation skills later in life. And was publishing an underground newspaper, because I was a bit of a rebel at my school, that won some awards, but my school faculty hated it, including the head of the English department, who was the person who was my teacher for the class that I didn't write the paper for. And so I failed that English class, which was mandatory, which got me an incomplete, and I never bothered to get the grade changed so that I could get a GPA, so that I could get entrance into college, because by the time I graduated high school, I was a full-fledged programmer and was earning money as a programmer. And I was like, why do I need to go to college if I already have a job programming? And so I guess my impatience with learning how to do things because that's how the system works, instead of doing things because they contribute to something, I have turned into a strength, because I now basically go around questioning everything and wondering what we should be doing that's actually valuable versus what we should be doing because that's the way it's always done.
Jared, thank you so much for joining us here on the Samelogic podcast. I can't wait to share this episode with our audience.
Well, thanks for having me. It has been a real joy, and I think you should take this and the work you do and go make some awesomeness.